The first contact wasn't supposed to go this way. We weren't supposed to be the ones giving warnings to an advanced civilization that had mastered faster than light travel. But here we were, a relatively young species by galactic standards, telling the mighty Arxan Empire to turn their ships around and never look back. I remember standing in the United Earth Defense Force Command Center that day, watching as the massive crystalline vessels emerged from hyperspace just beyond Mars' orbit. The holographic display showed 37 ships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever constructed. Their designs were beautiful in an alien way, all sharp angles and translucent surfaces that seemed to bend light itself. Admiral Chen's weathered face remained stoic as she studied the tactical readouts. 20 years of defending Earth's colonies had taught her to keep calm in any situation, but I could see her fingers drumming against the command console. The rest of the bridge crew held their breath, waiting for her decision. "Open a channel," she ordered, her voice steady despite the tension crackling through the air. All frequencies, all languages we'd decoded from their earlier transmissions. The Arxans had been watching us for months, their stealthy probes gathering data on our civilization. They thought we hadn't noticed, but our quantum detection grid had picked them up weeks ago. We just chose to let them think they were being clever. What they didn't know, couldn't know, was that humanity had spent the last century preparing for this exact moment. Ever since we discovered the ruins on Mars, we knew we weren't alone. Those ancient warnings, etched into metallic plates by a long-dead civilization, had given us a head start. We knew what happened to species that weren't ready when the Arxans came calling. The Admiral's message was simple. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. We know who you are. We know what you've done to other emerging civilizations. We've studied the graveyard of species you've left across this arm of the galaxy. This is your only warning. Leave Earth space immediately, or we will be forced to demonstrate why no empire has ever successfully conquered humanity." The bridge fell silent as we waited for their response. The Arxans had never encountered a species that stood up to them before first contact. Their standard procedure was to overwhelm primitive civilizations with a show of force, then offer them a choice, submission or extinction. But they had never met humans before. What they didn't realize was that their crystalline ships, while beautiful, had a fatal flaw we discovered by studying those ancient Martian records. A flaw that made them vulnerable to a weapon we'd spent decades perfecting. A weapon we hoped we'd never have to use. The tactical officer's console suddenly lit up with energy readings. The Arxan fleet was powering up their main weapons arrays, a typical intimidation tactic they'd used on 100 worlds before us. Admiral Chen allowed herself a small smile. "So be it," she whispered, reaching for the command key that would show the galaxy's oldest empire why humanity had survived every challenge it had ever faced. The Arxans were about to learn a harsh lesson about underestimating Earth. And this was just the beginning of a story that would reshape the power dynamics of the entire galaxy. The Arxan fleet's energy signatures continued to climb as their crystalline ships shifted formation. Through the command center's panoramic windows, we could see their vessels beginning to glow with an eerie purple light, the trademark of their infamous quantum cascade weapons. The same weapons that had turned the citizens of Proxima B into cosmic dust 80 years ago, according to the Martian archives. "They're broadcasting, Admiral," Lieutenant Rivera announced from the communications station. "Multiple frequencies, using their standard diplomatic protocols." The holographic display flickered to life, revealing what we'd expected. An Arxan High Commander. Their species resembled towering mantids made of living crystal, with faceted eyes that shifted colors as they spoke. This one's carapace bore the deep blue markings of their warrior caste. "Primitive species," the High Commander's translator echoed in perfect English. "Your defiance is noted but unnecessary. The Arxan Empire brings order to chaos, civilization to barbarism. Your species has potential. Submit now, and you may serve as equals among our client races." Admiral Chen's response was measured, calculated. "High Commander, we've accessed your empire's historical records. We know that in 6,000 years of expansion, you've never encountered a species that successfully resisted integration. That's about to change." I watched as she pulled up a secondary display, showing the status of Project Firebreak. 97% charged. The weapon we built using the Martian blueprints was almost ready. A weapon designed to exploit the one weakness in the Arxians' crystalline technology, their susceptibility to targeted graviton resonance. The High Commander's faceted eyes flickered with what might have been amusement. You speak of resistance, yet our scans show your defensive capabilities are minimal. Your largest vessels are mere toys compared to our smallest frigates. What makes your species different from the thousands we've uplifted? Humanity has one trait that sets us apart, Chen replied, her finger hovering over the activation key. We learn from history. We found the warnings left behind by the species you destroyed. We dedicated generations to preparing for this moment. And unlike every race you've conquered before, we don't fight alone. As if on cue, the quantum detection grid lit up with new signatures. Throughout the system, hidden installations on Mars, Europa, and Titan powered up their defensive systems. Each one had been built in secret, their energy signatures masked by the natural electromagnetic fields of their host bodies. The High Commander's posture shifted slightly, the first sign of uncertainty in their otherwise perfect composure. Their empire's records had shown Earth as an isolated world with a single colony on Mars. They hadn't expected this level of system-wide infrastructure. Last warning, Chen announced, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's determination. You have 30 seconds to power down your weapons and leave Earth space. After that, we'll show you exactly why the ancient Martians chose our species to inherit their legacy. The tension in the command center peaked as we watched the countdown begin. The Arxan fleet remained in attack formation, their weapons still charging. They had never retreated before. Their empire's entire philosophy was built on the assumption of their technological superiority, but they had never faced an enemy who had spent a century preparing specifically for them. 20 seconds remained on the countdown when the High Commander spoke again, their crystalline form vibrating with what our xenopsychologists would later identify as pure rage. None of us could have predicted what would happen next. You dare threaten the Arxian Empire with extinction. The High Commander's crystalline form pulsed with colors we'd never seen before. The arrogance of your species will be recorded in our archives as a warning to all who would challenge the natural order of the galaxy. At 15 seconds, their fleet began to move, but instead of retreating, they spread out into an attack formation we'd never seen in the Martian records. The crystalline ships realigned themselves into what looked like a three-dimensional snowflake, each vessel linking to others with beams of pure energy. Energy spike detected. Lieutenant Rivera called out, her hands flying over the sensor controls. They're channeling power between ships, total output exceeding all previous records in the Martian database. 10 seconds. Admiral Chen's expression remained unchanged, but I saw her free hand curl into a fist. The Arxians were about to do something unprecedented, something not even the ancient Martians had documented. Were we truly prepared for an enemy that could still surprise us after 6,000 years of unchanged tactics? All installations, initiate graviton resonance synchronization, Chen commanded. Throughout the solar system, humanity's hidden defenses hummed to life, each one perfectly calibrated to exploit the crystalline weakness we'd discovered. 5 seconds. The Arxian ships began to vibrate at a frequency that made our sensor arrays scream in protest. The space between their vessels filled with a web of purple energy, so dense it looked almost solid. They were combining their ship's power into a single weapon, a tactic that should have been impossible according to everything we knew about their technology. Admiral, I spoke up, my voice barely steady. If those energy readings are correct, they could crack Earth's crust with a single shot. 3 seconds. Trust in our preparations, Chen replied, her eyes fixed on the display. Trust in those who came before us, who gave their lives to ensure we be ready for this moment. The High Commander's image flickered as their ships channeled more power into the growing energy web. The Empire offers one final chance for mercy. Submit, and we will spare your homeworld from the consequences of your defiance. 1 second. Admiral Chen's finger pressed down on the activation key just as the Arxian fleet's energy web reached critical mass. In that moment, as two civilizations' ultimate weapons prepared to collide, I finally understood why the Martians had chosen humanity as their successors. They'd seen something in us that the Arxans, with all their power and technology, have forgotten long ago. The void between Earth and Mars lit up brighter than a new sun. Every sensor in the command center overloaded simultaneously, plunging us into darkness broken only by the blinding light from the windows. The last thing I saw before our emergency shutters slammed closed was Admiral Chen's face, illuminated by the unleashed power of two civilizations giving everything they had to survive. What happened next would change the course of galactic history forever. But in that moment, as the light of our defiance reached across space, none of us knew if we lived to see the outcome of humanity's greatest gamble. When our sensors finally came back online, the command center erupted in confused shouts and exclamations. The Arxan fleet's snowflake formation had shattered, their ships drifting apart like leaves in a cosmic wind. But they weren't destroyed. Far from it. Each crystalline vessel now pulsed with a deep green light we'd never seen before. Impossible, Lieutenant Rivera whispered, staring at her readings. They're ships. They're resonating at the exact frequency of our weapon. They're not just surviving it. They're absorbing it. Admiral Chen's face paled as she studied the tactical display. Our graviton weapon, humanity's trump card, was being turned against us. But how? The Martian records had shown this was their one weakness, tested across thousands of years of conflict. Second wave of energy signatures detected, the tactical officer announced. Not from the Arxan fleet. They're coming from behind us. We all turned to watch as new contacts appeared on our screens. Massive ships were emerging from hyperspace in Earth's orbit, but these weren't Arxan designs. They were angular, black as space itself, and adorned with familiar markings, Martian markings. The High Commander's image reappeared on our screens, but their demeanor had changed. Gone was the rage, replaced by something that looked almost like satisfaction. So the great deception ends. The children of Mars have finally revealed themselves. A new voice filled our command center, speaking in perfect Martian. Admiral Chen's universal translator struggled to keep up. The test is complete, Arxan friends. These humans have proven themselves worthy, just as we predicted. Realization hit me like a physical blow. The ancient Martian ruins, the carefully preserved warnings, the supposedly fatal flaw in Arxan technology. It had all been an elaborate test. The Martians hadn't gone extinct. They'd been watching, waiting, guiding humanity's development from the shadows. Admiral, I said, my voice shaking, the Martian records about the Arxans' weakness. They wanted us to build the graviton weapon, not to fight the Arxans, but to prove we could. Chen stood silently, processing the magnitude of this revelation. Humanity had just become an unwitting participant in a game between two ancient civilizations. But as I looked at her face, I saw not defeat, but a familiar determination. If this was a test, she said, her finger moving to a different command key, then maybe they should know we prepared for this scenario too. Enable Project Phoenix. Throughout the solar system, a second layer of human defenses began powering up. Installations and weapons we built not from Martian blueprints, but from our own ingenuity. Because if humanity had learned one thing from studying ancient civilizations, it was to never trust that you had the full story. The High Commander and the Martian ships hung motionless in space, watching as humanity revealed its true capabilities. No one in that command center could have predicted what Admiral Chen would do next. A decision that would force both ancient civilizations to reevaluate everything they thought they knew about Earth's primitive species. Project Phoenix activated, the tactical officer announced as new energy signatures blazed to life across the solar system. But these weren't weapons, at least not in the traditional sense. Thousands of small satellites emerged from hidden positions in the asteroid belt, each one emitting a unique quantum frequency. They formed an intricate web of light and energy, connecting every human installation from Mercury to the Kuiper Belt. This was humanity's true defense system, developed in secret while we let both the Arxans and the hidden Martians think they were guiding our technological development. Admiral Chen's voice carried across the command center with unwavering conviction. To both our ancient friends, you wanted to test humanity. Then let's show you what we really are. The quantum web pulsed once, and suddenly every piece of Martian and Arxan technology in the system went dark. Their ships, their weapons, their communications, all disabled by a field of human design that neither civilization had believed possible for a young species to create. Impossible. The High Commander's translator sputtered before failing completely. The Martian vessels' attempt to power up their secondary systems failed just as spectacularly. Humanity has spent centuries being underestimated, Chen announced on all frequencies, in all languages. While you watched us build weapons based on your designs, we were learning, adapting, creating something entirely new. We didn't just prepare for war, we prepared for peace. This system-wide quantum field doesn't destroy. It creates a space where all our technologies must work together or not work at all. The command center screens showed the impossible. Arxan crystal technology beginning to resonate with Martian dark matter drives, both gradually synchronizing with human quantum systems. Three civilizations' technologies forced into harmony by a human innovation that neither ancient species had imagined possible. We don't want your war, and we don't want your tests, Chen continued. What humanity wants is what we've always wanted, to learn, to grow, to connect. This field will hold until both of you agree to real dialogue, not as testers or conquerors, but as equals. A new signal cut through the quantum field, a joint transmission from both alien fleets. The High Commander and the Martian leader appeared side by side, their expressions unreadable to human eyes but their message clear. Enforcing harmony between their technologies, humanity had achieved something neither civilization had managed in millennia of evolution. But as the three species prepared to begin their historic first true dialogue, a fourth signal appeared on our screens. Far beyond Neptune's orbit, something massive was stirring, awakened by the resonance of our quantum field. Something that made both the Arxans and Martians fall silent in what could only be described as awe. Admiral Chen turned to me, a mix of wonder and concern in her eyes. It seems humanity's first steps into the galactic community have awakened something that even our ancient friends thought was just a myth. She paused, watching as the distant signal grew stronger. Send word to Earth. The real test of our species is about to begin. The massive signal from beyond Neptune pulsed again, stronger this time. On our screens, we watched as both Arxan and Martian ships reoriented themselves toward the outer solar system. Their previous postures of authority and testing had vanished, replaced by what looked remarkably like reverence. "We're receiving a transmission," Lieutenant Rivera announced, her voice barely above a whisper. It's using frequencies that span all our technologies simultaneously. Human, Arxan, and Martian. As if it knows exactly how our quantum field works. The message that filled our screens wasn't in any language we recognized, but somehow every being in the system understood it perfectly. The consciousness reaching out to us had been sleeping in the void since before any of our civilizations learned to make fire. It was drawn to the harmony we created, the first time in the galaxy's history that three spacefaring species had achieved true technological resonance. Admiral Chen stood at the command center's window, watching as aurora-like waves of energy began to ripple through the quantum field connecting our civilizations. All this time, she said quietly, the Arxans sought to unite the galaxy through conquest, while the Martians tested younger races for worthiness. But it turns out the real key to awakening the ancient ones was cooperation. The High Commander's crystalline form shimmered as they transmitted again, this time with humility we'd never expected to see from the Arxan Empire. In 6,000 years of expansion we never understood. The legend spoke of awakeners who would herald a new age in the galaxy. We thought it meant conquerors. We were wrong. The Martian leader's dark ships pulsed an agreement. We searched for species with the potential to bridge divides, to think beyond the patterns of the past. Humanity succeeded beyond our greatest expectations. You didn't just solve our test. You transformed it into something entirely new. As the ancient consciousness continued to approach our solar system, its presence felt less like a threat and more like an invitation. Through our combined technologies, we could sense its age, its wisdom, and its purpose. It had waited eons for the galaxy's younger species to prove they were ready for what it had to share. 3 days ago, humanity thought we were alone in the universe, I said, watching the quantum field shimmer with new possibilities. Now we're standing at the dawn of something none of us could have imagined. Admiral Chen turned to face the assembled officers, her expression both proud and humbled. Send word to Earth's governments. Tell them humanity's first interstellar war ended before it began, replaced by first contact with not one, not two, but 4 civilizations. The age of isolation is over. The real journey is just beginning. As our quantum field adapted to accommodate the Ancient One's presence, I realized that humanity's greatest strength had never been our weapons or our defenses. It was our ability to imagine something better than conflict, our drive to turn confrontation into connection. We had prepared for war but achieved peace, ready for tests but delivering solutions. The ancient consciousness reached the edge of our solar system just as Earth's first sunrise since the crisis began painted the command center in golden light. In that moment, as 3 young civilizations prepared to learn from one who had watched galaxies born, I understood why the human spirit had carried us so far. We weren't just survivors or innovators. We were dreamers who dared to make our dreams reality. And now, those dreams would carry us to the stars, not as conquerors or subjects, but as pioneers of a new way forward for all civilizations. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would we.